Hey guys, Justin here. Quick note, if you're looking for the hot lap, it's going to be on the second lap here, so make sure to skip ahead if that's what you're looking for. And then as always, please like the video if these help you out because it's the #1 way to help me out, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Alright, let's go right to the lap. Oh, if we could start 1, 2, and then count each other down, it'd be so sick. Then we could just walk out the front row all race. I don't even know what it's like to long run yet.
.376.
There we go, there's a 91. Alright, let's take a look at this lap. So I tried to make first lap work, and you can do a decent first lap, but it's just too slick to make work on the first lap. So we're going to be doing a one shot of a second lap here. The second lap, on the first lap, you want to be riding around the top here, and then again, trying to gain as much momentum as possible by kind of cutting down the track. So you see I start out really high, and then I kind of get my angle going down the hill, and once I get going down the hill, I'm full throttle the whole way. This will help me get rotation because the car stays loose, and you don't really have any trouble staying off the wall here. So now we're going to be going into turn 1, and from here, I really like the idea of getting off the throttle early and getting to the bottom as early as possible. So I'm aiming for the first instance of the curved yellow line that I see. So you can see this early apex line. And this is the point that I'm trying to hit. And I'm doing this by dragging my brake. And if you do have too low of a brake bias, you really can't make the bottom here because you just start sliding. So I really like 58 here for qualifying, and then 60 for the race to be a bit more conservative. So I really get to the bottom here, and I did a really good job of painting the line, and I was rewarded with this by some extra time. So I'm still dragging the brake here when I get to the bottom. So you drag your brake all the way until halfway through the corner. If you want a marking for that, I just use feeling. But if you really want a marking for it, start gassing up about at the Virginia lottery sign. These signs right here. I don't use that as a point, but this is, if you were to use a point, that'd be a good one. So I start with 2/3 throttle, and then when I'm able to open up my wheel, that's when I go full. So that's a big similarity with all these C-Fix tracks, is that you go partial throttle until you're able to open up the wheel. And the moment you're able to open up the wheel is when you can full throttle. That's a big pattern with these with these loose short tracks. You saw that in the ARCA series too, at like a South Boston. So anyways, we're going to approach C3 and 4 in the same way. Really not that different. We're going to be aiming for the yellow line right here. We're going to be using our brake to get there, a little bit earlier brake than you think you need to do. Start out with a 50%-ish, bring it down to a drag once you make the yellow. And again, just ride the yellow line at partial throttle. Ride the yellow line at partial throttle, and then on 3 and 4, I'm actually, because this corner exits so wide compared to 1 and 2, I'm actually forcing the throttle a bit early to gain some time. So you see, I'm able to slide up in full throttle and gain a lot of momentum down the backstretch. I never even get close to the wall. And maybe there was more time to be gained by getting on the throttle earlier, but what you're risking is sliding up the track immediately on the throttle. You see, I hit full throttle here, and I was still on the yellow. What you're trying to avoid is hitting the full throttle and immediately pointing up the track. And that's a bit of a feeling. It's a feeling of if you think your car is going to push up immediately, or if you think you're riding on the right rear a little bit based on your angle. And you can kind of feel around for that and get used to that feeling based on a bit of trial and error. So again, I was able to force some full throttle, and I was able to open up the wheel and really stay off the wall. And that's how we get a good qualifying lap here. So anyways, let's move on to the race. This should be an interesting one. All right, so I've done 3 races. The first 2 were absolute crap shows, and this one was exactly the same, except we come out with the craziest, most undeserved win here, so that's great. So we'll see some tips for this race here. So off the start, I'm starting 5th here in the 66 truck, and you can see how important restarts are. And I'm still not great at these restarts, and this is how you are supposed to do them. Okay, so I'm gonna be in first gear here, and what I want to be doing is when I see the leader go, I stomp on the gas but almost immediately shift into second. And if you do that correctly, you'll get a good launch and a good start. You see here, I was sleeping. I slept so hard on the leader there. So I immediately put myself at a disadvantage. Oh boy, that's loud. Immediately put myself at a disadvantage, and was able to hold off on the top here. This outside line, you really can. Oh my god, I got loose there. I forgot about that. So yeah, cold tires are loose, so be careful. Don't spin out on the first lap. That's another good tip. So I was just managing at that point, and I think caution came out pretty early, and we held on to 6th. And so really there wasn't a run longer than 8-9 laps here, and on that run I felt like we were doing pretty darn good. I was just running a pretty conservative line, early entries, unless somebody was really pressuring me. You can hold off people on the outside. Really just trying to make some space for myself, and then once I make some space, head to the bottom. So you see how backed off I am on the corners now that I made space for myself. If I had a guy within half this distance, I would have to push the entry harder. So when you have the space, don't be afraid to easy enter it, because that'll be good on your tires and good on your lap time. So I'm just trying to conserve here while I still can. And I actually take advantage of a mistake on the 9 car here and able to stay ahead of him. And so after this run, so I would say if you get to a point where you make a 8 to 10 lap green flag run, if you get there, it's not a guarantee in these races, but if you get there, I would pit for 4 tires. But I also want to point something out to you, so we'll just skip ahead here. So we're on pit road, and our friend of the channel, Caden Anderson, he decided he needs to make up some track position, so he's going to take 2 tires. And the nature of this race, if it gets a lot of cautions, then you could make this work, and Caden did make this work. He got 2nd place eventually. Not without some interesting controversy, though. So you're probably going to wonder how the heck I went from 8th to 1st here. And the answer is I got there because I was not hated by anybody in front or behind me. So we get running here, and immediately there's some contact, and I think there's a wreck up here. This was kind of a racing incident, honestly. I didn't think this was too bad by anyone. It was a little bit hard of a squeeze by the 12, so it kind of makes sense that was a little bit of netcode too. But you see, I kind of squeezed by there, got a little lucky, gained a couple spots there. So now I'm pretty good on track position now, starting 4th. And this is when the juicy stuff starts happening. And there's always going to be juicy stuff happening in C-Fixed at Richmond, and you got to try to stay out of it. Unless you want to be the guy who dive bombs his way to the front and then make enemies with everyone in the lobby. If you want that to be you, that's your prerogative, and you kind of reap what you sow. So we got to battle for the lead now with some contact, and just they came together. Honestly, again, I think that the green car might have been arcing out the black car a little bit, which is why they kind of came together, but that netcode just made everything a lot worse than it needed to be, which was unfortunate for both of them, honestly, and it absolutely destroyed the black car. And then from an earlier incident, we got our good buddy Caden. He's letting a little tap go here and kind of just stacks up the field, and we're going to get another wreck here when the field stacks up. And actually this was just the 10 car clearing himself, and oops, that's too bad for him. So somehow, after all of that, we find ourselves with the Mickey Mouse lead with 17 laps to go. And then the next restart, we have another incident in turn 1. Looks like a black car kind of got tight there, and netcode kind of made it look worse than it was. So that was an interesting play there. And then we find ourselves with 10 to go. And really at this point, they're just going to be wrecking every lap. So as long as I get a good restart, I'm in the catbird seat. No one's pitting. There's a blinker in the midst of all of this, making it hard for anybody to do anything, which is really helping me out because I don't think I was the best on speed here today. But, you know, I kept my nose clean, unlike the other 2 races I did. I got a 0x out of it, and I think I was rewarded with that. With eventually, after one more caution and a green-white checker, kind of just setting sail. And eventually we find ourselves crossing the checker flag for yet another C-fixed win. I did not expect to have more C-fixed wins than ARCA wins this season, but hey, you know, maybe I'm an ARCA farmer and a C-fixed farmer. How about that? But anyways, I think the moral of the story is survive. Qualifying good will get you good track position. Pit for tires if you have more than 10 green flag laps in a row. And on your restarts, make sure to do that first gear shift with the immediate shift into second. Those are my big takeaways from these series of races. So anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all on the track.